Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. So we do a lot of college hoops recruiting here on the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. You guys care. You guys love it. And it's certainly interesting and fun to follow. I think you could argue it's maybe even more interesting in 2025 in this NIL era. But I bring it up because we talk quite a bit about recruiting. We have a lot to discuss. But really, the 2025 class is like they're largely kind of in the books, right? AJ DeBonsa to BYU, the Boozer twins to Duke, on and on and on. Whoever. Darius Acuff to Arkansas, Jasper Johnson, Malachi Moreno to Kentucky, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I bring it up because there is one uncommitted player, by the way, and I should preface, like, there's always a chance some of these guys decommit in the spring, coaching changes happen, whatever. But what I'll say is there are still a few uncommitted guys. We've talked about Koa Pete before. Elijah Arenas just committed to USC last week. There's a guy that is in the midst of what I would argue is one of the most fascinating recruitments that I have ever seen. And that is Nate Ament. Okay, so Nate Ament is the #1 uncommitted player in America, #4 player in the class, according to 24/7 Sports. And you just talk about a strange recruitment, okay? Took a bunch of visits in the fall, just got back from Duke, wants to take a visit from Kentucky. And then on Wednesday, Matt, you can hold the tweet for now, but there was a report that he was going to St. John's. We'll get to that in a minute. Then there was a report that wasn't accurate. And so this is one of the wildest recruitments that I have ever seen. And what I want to do is take a minute, just dive in, what I know, what I don't know, because this is just a fascinating deal. So let's go ahead and dive in. Nate Ament, 6'9" forward, kind of a cool recruiting story. He is a kid that was, listen, I think he was highly regarded, kind of in his junior-ish year. Got an early offer from Duke, early offer from a few others. He's from the Virginia not the Virginia area. He's from Virginia. So I think a lot of those kind of local ACC schools were on to him earlier. Then he blew up nationally last summer. And that was when he started to see all the non-local schools. UConn offered him, Kansas offered him, Louisville offered him, on and on. And so it was a little bit of a slow blooming recruitment. He's a little bit of a late bloomer. Again, I can't say he's a full late bloomer. Duke offered him in 2023. But his recruitment just really blew up, May, June, July of last year as the summer circuit really got going. And so I bring it up because when we were doing those recruiting updates every Friday on the Aaron Torres pod, what was interesting to me was that he was one of those guys, right? You could kind of see, hey, fill in the blank player, AJ DeBonsa, the Boozer twins. You could kind of see their recruitment starting to ramp up. But Nate Ament was the guy that I said from the beginning, I was like, I think this is going to go into April. And it's not something necessarily negative, but I think he was really enjoying the recruitment process. By the way, if you're Cam Boozer, if you're AJ DeBonsa, and you've been basically being hounded by college coaches since before your freshman year in high school, then yeah, by your senior year, you probably want to get it over with. But this kid was different. It took a little bit longer to blow up nationally, seemed to be enjoying the process, and he took a bunch of visits in the fall. He visited Louisville in the fall. He visited Tennessee in the fall, Texas in the fall, Duke in the fall, Notre Dame in the fall. There may have been a Houston visit, if I'm not mistaken. And so I bring it up because just wide open recruitment. But what's crazy is by the time you get to February, if guys haven't committed yet, remember, you're going to enroll in probably May. So if you haven't committed yet, you kind of are starting to whittle down your list. Nate Ament ain't playing those games, okay? Because Nate Ament's recruitment has taken on a million new twists just in like the last 2 or 3 weeks, okay? So first off, did visit Tennessee again for the Kentucky game last week, so that's certainly interesting. Then he visited North Carolina last week for the North Carolina-Duke game. I mean, I would go if I was him and I was being recruited by Duke. Then there's this report that, he might visit Kentucky. Will he visit? Will he not? Kansas State was set to get a visit. The visit gets canceled. And then the craziest part of this all, St. John's. Producer Matt, you can pop it up. As we were getting ready to go on air on Wednesday, Joe Tipton puts out this tweet, 5-star Nate Ament is scheduling a visit to St. John's, a source told On3 Sports. a significant development in the recruitment of the top available prospect in the class of 2025. Producer Matt, you can pull that tweet because you know who else pulled that tweet? Joe Tipton pulled that tweet about 10, 15 minutes after it happened. So you have a kid that has taken 5 officials in the fall, that wants to take one to Kentucky, that just went back to Tennessee, that just went back to Duke, that, oh, by the way, was going to go to Kansas State and canceled it. Now St. John's could or could not be in the mix. I should mention, by the way, with Nate Ament, I'm not here to criticize. I'm just here to state facts. He's part of this app where fans can donate directly to his NIL, which is basically just send him a bunch of money. Fascinating app, by the way. Another conversation for another day. But it's just one of the wildest things I've ever seen. Like I said, he's going to commit probably in April. He's adding schools to the list at this point. I've never seen anything quite like this, okay? Now, as far as what I think is realistic and what isn't, let's dive into this a few different ways. First of all, the St. John's thing is fascinating, and I'll tell you what makes it especially fascinating. It's not just that he's a really good player. It's not just that he's an elite prospect. And it's not just the fact that St. John's really wasn't in the mix. But what I've been told by people that I trust, we have a Torres on SJU account, and let me just say that the Drew who runs it is unbelievable with his knowledge of St. John's. Drew's like, I can tell you, Rick Pitino isn't really recruiting high school players anymore. And it's not some new age philosophy about the transfer portal. He's just like, I'm 72 years old. I don't know how long I'm realistically going to be here. I hope I'm here 10 more years, but I'm not going to recruit you and promise you that I'm going to be here in 4 years if I can't promise you that. So he's basically not even recruiting the high school ranks. Now, Nate Ament is obviously different. He's going to be a one and done. And so you sit there and say, okay, like if Nate Ament wants to come to my school, we're going to take him. But I'm still not even totally sure if Nate Ament was the one who initiated the contact, if St. John's initiated the contact with him, because I don't think they're really recruiting high school players anymore. So that's the St. John's perspective. 2 visits last week kind of speaks to that. And then there's, oh, by the way, the schools that have been there all along. And so, listen, if I was guessing right now, and I don't know if we should be guessing right now, it seems like it might be a silly proposition with this. I would still say the 2 favorites, if I had to take a guess. I would say it's probably 2 schools that he has not visited. Well, I shouldn't say that. The 2 schools that I would say are probably likely the favorites are Duke and Louisville, okay? So Duke, been there from the beginning. That visit for the North Carolina game thought was interesting. You know who else was on campus? Basically their entire recruiting class. The Boozer twins had kind of publicly said, hey, we don't think we'll be able to get back to campus before the end of the season. Yeah, they were in town for that game against North Carolina. Shelton Henderson, another 5-star, was in town for that North Carolina game. So you have that element of it. Then beyond that, you also have Louisville. And I think Louisville feels like they've been in the mix from the beginning. Pat Kelsey's a beast, dude. Like, Pat Kelsey is a really, 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 really good coach, good recruiter. Obviously, Mikel Brown Jr., another 5-star McDonald's All-American, is committed. And I think what's interesting about that one, and we've discussed it at length, is the fact that was the highest rated recruit in like 20 years. So Pat Kelsey's doing big things. I do think it's kind of a Louisville Duke thing right now, but I just keep going back to, there's been a lot of twists and turns in this recruitment, and it might have felt one way over the course of the last, however many months. I don't know if it's going to end that way when it's all said and done. So the one thing with Nate Ament, never seen a recruit really. I've seen a kid that decommits adding schools to his list this time of year. I've seen a coach get fired and a kid reopen his recruitment. I don't know if I've ever seen a kid that just is adding schools in mid-February when he's got to enroll here in 2.5 months. So fascinating recruitment. We'll keep you updated. I would say him and Koapita are the last 2 big high school players, and we're going to have wall-to-wall coverage of the portal as well.